Kent, let me ask you this. How do you, I'm going to change my display name real quick. I'll put my full
Welcome
name.
to Still Talking Uncut. I'm your host, Big Easy. Joined by my co-host, Master Distiller Sean Rigsby. Welcome to the show, number 46. Surprised me we're still running this long.
I made the top 100.
We got many more to come, hopefully. But we're honored tonight, privileged enough to have near and dear to our heart, Ohio based. We love our Ohio guys. It's just the way it is. So, and if you guys are tired of seeing so many Ohio guys on here, then send your hate mail to Sean and get on the schedule. We don't mind. So, but
try harder.
we're honored and privileged to have Steve Porter from Woodshed Distilling out in New Bavaria, Ohio.
Yep.
Just what's that? A little northwest of Findlay, I believe.
Yeah, you could say that. It's about halfway between Toledo and Fort Wayne, I guess.
Yeah.
Up here in the corner, just me and Lawrence. I know a lot of your watchers probably they probably know about Lawrence at Flat Rock. So we're the only two guys within. I mean, probably 40, not quite an hour, but we're the only two guys in about an hour radius.
Yeah, I look up distilleries in this area because whenever I travel, I'm looking who's close. Where do I got time to stop in here? Like I have to go to Findlay on Saturday, so I was looking how close you are, and so I'm trying to see if I can fit that in before I got to be there. And I noticed that you and Flat Rock, it's you up there, and then there's nothing forever from you until you get a little south and you get a little closer to Dayton. Then they start popping up.
Yeah.
And then there's quite a few in the Dayton area.
Yeah. It seems like Miami Valley and Columbus are kind of the hubs.
Yeah.
So Steve, tell us. Well, fuck. Go ahead, Ian. I know what you're getting ready to say.
What you drinking on over there, Coughs?
Indian Creek Distillery, Elias Staley, their white rye whiskey, which I feel like Steve might. You know them, don't you?
I know who they. Oh yeah, I know about them. I still haven't made it there, which it's sad, but I know. No, yeah, I know all about them. They're on the short list, and even from where I'm at, it's like maybe 2-hour drive down there. It's just no excuse why I haven't been there yet. But
they're building a new tasting room. They got a new tasting room. They finally got approved to build. They're putting that in right now. So
cool.
After they get that up, I'm gonna have to go out there and check it out.
Yeah.
Yep. They're scheduled to be on here too, so.
All right.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that.
Get to talk about that old still they got.
Oh man, that thing is beautiful. The double, two of them side by side. Man, they patched it not too long ago, and they had it out. And I'm like, man, I'm sorry you had to patch it, but man, I sure am grateful I get to see it out of its tomb. So it's happy,
I mean that stuff happens. What's important is they got it. They're still using it, and it still works. They're keeping the history alive. So, I guess some things we'll probably touch on later. There's the tradition of what a lot of us do, and then there's the legal side of it, and then going forward. So, it's I think Buffalo Trace, one of their slogan or something is embrace tradition and look for something like that. But, you got to know where you come from, right?
Oh, yeah, you never forget. Keeps you rooted.
So you drinking anything over there, Steve?
Yeah. Actually, I got a whole rack of stuff behind me I pulled down tonight, but going with the old $20 special Benchmark Full Proof.
Man, sometimes, $20 special is all you need.
Well,
it's all you need.
There's maybe, I don't know, we'll get to it. I got about 100-ish 100 plus bottles in the garage. And it's climate controlled garage before all you people start freaking out there. Like, oh my God, it's air conditioned in the summer, it's heated in the winter. It stays between 50 and 75 all year round. But if I want something, go out there and grab it. But the backup bottle on deck, $11.49 special from B&B Carryout in Kingsport, Tennessee, mellow corn.
Is that any good?
I like it. I mean, a lot of people, It gets a rap, I think, because a lot of people they'll open it up expecting it to be like bourbon because corn's got to be 80 more than 80%, and they just expect it to be a bourbon, and it's not. I mean, corn's not. It tastes like popcorn to me. Obviously with some alcohol note, but I like it. But it's 11. It's probably $13 now. Ohio just brought it back. They had it on the discontinued list. 2017, I think it dropped, and it hit whatever was left hit the shelves at like $6 a bottle. So I grabbed a case of it. So I'm still like 7 deep on that stuff.
Sometimes, man, you see stuff for $6 a bottle. You got to at least try 1 or 10.
Yeah. What the hell?
Whatever it speaks to you.
I can get a now I can get a bottle of Red Label Weller, or I can get a case of mellow corn. So I mean, we didn't have it, the Weller then, but anyways. So, but no, I got a whole bunch of craft stuff behind me. I kind of wanted. Sean and I kind of talked about some things, we might dive into later on, but we'll talk about some of the craft stuff.
It's your episode. You dive in whatever you want.
So I get a little bit about me, I guess, and we'll go from there. So I'm from around this area. Spent some time in the Army between active duty, National Guard, was in the infantry. Did some armor, a little bit of that stuff. Got to play with machine guns, got to play with tanks, got out, did the civilian bit in the private world, sold cars. Been a little, around everywhere, but met a girl. This is her house. She bought this right after we met each other, and it was her mom and dad's house. Well, her folks are from Southwest Virginia. They're from Scott County, Virginia, Dungannon and Nicholsville, and basically, her dad was he was a bootlegger. I mean, straight up. There's a lot of people say it's like, oh, I make liquors. He hundreds, if not thousands, of gallons a year, and he would sell it to people he knew, and it was side money, a side hustle. But we got talking, and I didn't really understand all of it, all that well 15, 20 years ago. Of course, it wasn't on YouTube. There wasn't a television show. There was no Last Run with Popcorn and JB. But I asked him, like, hey, I want to do this sometime. And he'd tell me, and I try to make a mash and screw it up. And you could make beer. It's kind of the first same steps. But, going fast forward about 7, 8 years, was cleaning the barn out, and I came across this old barrel. I'm looking at it, I'm like, this thing is beat to hell. It was a still. I didn't know, but it was out in the barn, big old 55-gallon stainless kettle keg from where I used to work at. So I kind of figured out how it went together after looking at some things. HomeDistiller.org, great resource for the home-based folks out there, and learn how to put this thing together and said a few things. Asked for some help, and people are like, "There ain't no way in hell you can do what you said you're doing." Well, I am, and I kind of learned, they were half right. And, anyways, we kind of figured it out. But yeah, the first 3 times I tried to run that still, I didn't do anything but get drunk trying to figure it out. I mean, just, drinking beer and out there, at night in the backyard trying to figure shit out. It didn't work. So,
hey, sometimes we do our best work when we're had too many beers or sample too much off the worms. It's just,
well, I mean, I didn't even get a drop to come out of it. I didn't. In hindsight, I found out I had way too much liquid in the thumper. I had a thumper in there, and it was all screw tight union fittings, all stainless fittings from where he worked at. Brought all the pipe, it was all 100% stainless. But it had screw clamp fittings. Everything was stainless, and it was slip joint except for the cap. And the cap had some tabs, and it basically just sat, kind of like a China cap would sit on a stovepipe or something like that.
Okay.
And he's like, yeah, just roll up some flour paste and just make a bit. Well, the problem was all that liquid in the thumper caused enough back pressure. It kept blowing that seal out.
Yeah.
I didn't know any better at the time because I didn't know any better. He's the only person I knew that made liquor. Nobody talked about making it. But phone decided to try to go dim for a second. nobody talked about making it though back then. This was 2009, 10. YouTube was still kind of new, so you really didn't have any resources to go to. So it was just dumb luck. I figured, well, I was standing there talking with my brother was helping me, and he kept saying maybe that pot's too, it's too much pressure. I'm like, nah, it can't be. I mean, but it was, so we learned and moved on and shit. And so met up with the guy who built my still. Some guys might know him.
The one you got now?
Yeah. Well, actually, I got two of them, and we've been talking about it. There's another one, a big monster that he made. But it was a friend of his I helped get set up, and he got legal down in Tennessee. But Matt Balltrip. So I got a 20 gallon, and I, kind of thought about being legal, but anyway, so you talked to him a little bit. We talked through it. And, so I got a 20 gallon, experimented a little bit, I guess. And then found out I was going to have a baby girl. And the wife said, you can't have that as a hobby anymore because you have responsibility now. And there's too many liabilities. So she's always been fairly cautious, even though her dad, her grandpa, her great grandpa, it's like her dad was like a 5th generation bootlegger. Straight up. Got pictures of these guys hauling liquor jugs on muleback because they all had mules for some reason except her dad. But she's like, you're not doing it. She says, you're not like them. It's not in Ohio. So anyways, we went through the process of getting legal, and that was in 2015. My state permit is number 26, 25. Well, yeah, my number in Ohio is number 25, but as far as the feds say, it's number 26 in Ohio. So that's, I don't know what we're up to now, but it's like 100 and something. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So what year was it that you went legal?
I got my certificate was approved on July 1st, 2015. So, and the cool thing was, I got my paper here to show all you folks. We're going to talk about what it takes to get legal, but the application date was May the 20th, 2015, and the approval date is down there July 1, 2015. So I know nowadays TTB is doing a great job of getting that stuff turned out in month and a half, but we're talking 8 years ago when they had 1/10 of the agents, they were buried, and the average turnaround time was like 6 months. So there's some things you can nowadays. I don't think it matters. They're efficient enough. They're manned up, staffed up. They know how to push that paper out pretty quick. So if you got all your ducks in a row on your end, you can probably get a permit in a couple months. But like I was saying back when I did it, you didn't have anybody to go to. Sean and I were talking about this before we went live. Your resources were basically a handful of legal guys on Facebook, if they're willing to talk to you, and the ADI forum, and that was it. I mean, nobody on Home Distiller at that time knew. I mean, there was a rare exception. You might know, oh yeah, that's like Tater. Oh, I know that. There's some common handles on there, like, oh, I know that guy, or like the Colonel. I mean, that's Vaughn Wilson, the guy in Arkansas. I don't even know if Vaughn's still alive. He was older then. No disrespect to him or anybody, but I thought about getting a still from him, but I didn't want to wait 9 months for a still. So I found somebody that I knew that was kind of just somebody I grew up with, and it just dumb luck. I came across the guy that could do it, and put everything in motion, and within a year had the building ready, had the paperwork ready, had the still ready, and went with it.
So you went to school with Matt? Is that what you said?
Yeah, he went to school up here in Ohio.
Okay, no shit.
He's a couple years younger. We didn't graduate the same year. We went to same elementary, same high school. He was a freshman when I was a senior. So yeah, he's a couple years behind me. He's got an older brother that I think's a year or two older, a couple years older than I am, I think. But it's our little hometown, just like everybody else's hometown. Maybe I hardly ever talked to Matt in high school. I think we rode the bus a few times together for a year or two. But you still know each other. You still know the people. So yeah, he did me a say. I reached out to him, and he's like, "Hell yeah, I'll make you still. When do you want to do it?" So we got together and made it real.
So what are
So-
you? Go ahead, Ian.
So you run it. You just got like a wood shed on your property, even though
Yep.
you're not allowed to have
Yep.
a distillery in a shed on your property.
Right. Right.
Like how's that swing? Like, because we got people ask like, hey man, how do I do this out of my home, out of a shed in my home? Like,
Yeah.
you know.
So yeah, when it came time for me to start putting paper together, I called because I didn't know where to start, so I called TTB down in Cincinnati. I'm like, hey, this is me. My name's Steve. I live in the sticks, and I want to start a distillery. Where do I start? And the lady I talked to was nice enough, and she really held my hand the whole way too, along with a couple other guys. That one on the West Coast, one on the East Coast. Scott at is it Copper Moon, right? Or
Copper Moon Distillery, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. And then Richard Stillwagon out in Oregon. The first thing, those two guys are like, anything you got on Facebook, take that shit down. Any pictures, just get rid of it. And then the second we chatted, they kind of helped me along, and so I ended up calling down to Cincinnati, where the TTB the liquor portion headquarters, where they process the paper, anyways, or the phone center. And the lady I talked to, she's like, "Well, you got to start with local approval. You got to get local approval first, because if they're not going to zone you for it, you're not going to go any further, because everything's local, right? All politics is local.
Yeah,
that's where it starts." So, as it turned out, I just missed my township's special zoning meeting, and they only do them quarterly. Because if anybody's looking where Woodshed Spirits is on the map, you got to zoom out a little bit to find my next door neighbor. He's literally a quarter mile straight across the field, but
I was checking it out. I was like, man, where this place? This reminds me of going to a farm to pick up corn, like out in the middle of nowhere. But
yeah, and Google hasn't done me any favors out here, because the picture they show is when we're still building the garage onto the house. So at the time the measurements were submitted to be checked out, we were 42 feet further away from the house than what we are now. But anyway, they said, as long as you do this and this, and that picture was taken before we got legal anyways. So yeah, back to the question, how it happened. I got a really great, I'm gonna say champion. Somebody's like, hey, you're going to do this, and we're going to help you do it. And so I went and got local zoning approval, because that's the first thing. And I had to go to the zoning board and fill out, application. And they said, okay, so the first thing is, where do you live at? And I told them. They're like, oh, well, there are a lot of special circumstances where I live at that I can do this. The first is, I am in an unincorporated, non-enterprise zoned township. The unincorporated part of it, that's fairly self-explanatory. It's not like, you get around, especially Cincinnati, Dayton, Columbus, you get like Clintonville town. There's just a lot of townships, where it's basically like its own mini city. They got their own cops, they got their own, everything. So I don't have that out here. The second part of it is, you have to pass the zoning approval, at least as far as Ohio is concerned. And I imagine most other states are alike. You can't be within 500 feet of a school. You can't be within 500 feet of a church. And well, now you can. It's not an automatic disqualifier. Just like you can't be in a shed or a yard or stuff that I am. The church can automatically just say no. Now I think with the school, I don't know how the school deal, but I don't know. I guess it used to be that way. It may have changed. It may be local option, so there might be that there. But anyways, in my case, I only have one landowner that I had to get permission to have my distillery, because you have to have agreement from all your neighbors, at least where I'm at, to get this business going. I only have one landowner. He's super cool. Went to high school with my wife. he's like, hell yeah, man, let me know because I'll put some cabins up out there. We'll make it like a weekend getaway thing because he cash rents his ground. He inherited it. He doesn't farm. He owns some businesses. But anyways, he's like, yeah, man, let me know what you want to do. We'll make this work. And then he wanted to carry this gas station. I'm like, yeah, it doesn't work like that. But anyways, so first thing is you got to get your township to buy off on it. Second thing, and they're not going to do it if you have an objection. I sit on a county line, so I didn't have to talk to anybody across the road. I literally got one guy. So then after that, you got to go get. Then you got to register your business with the state. You got to get a name. You got to license that. So you got to do a DBA. You got to do either an LLC, an S corp, a corp, corporations. One of the business structures. So you basically got to decide we're going to be real. So you set that up. You pay for your name. You pay for your license. Then you got to go down to the county courthouse where the clerk, I think it's the auditor. Yeah, the auditor. Get the county business or state business license through them, which is their vendor's license. You have a vendor's license, and that's like $15. And you got to set up your pay.gov account. At the time, the one thing. So I showed you guys earlier. It took me 31 days to get my license approved. It would have been less than 2 weeks, except one thing happened. They changed the wording on the bond. Now, if your tax liability for the year is under so many dollars, you're not required to have you're not required to keep a bond anymore. It's a tax bond. So basically, if I sell liquor and I don't pay my taxes, it's just like a bond from court or whatever. It's an insurance bond. But they changed that wording on there, so I actually had to call my bondsman back, or his insurance company, call him back and say, hey, Bill, I need to redo this. And it took like a week back and forth because everything had to be through the mail because it was notarized and all this other shit. So that cost me a week on my application. So if it hadn't been for that, I'd probably been done in less than 30 days, which at that time was unheard of. But I'm a one-man show. So anyways, you got to get the bond in order. So when you send in your federal permit packet, which if anybody's wondering, I don't have tape measure, but for just a one-man operation, it's about a 1/4 inch paper. I got my taxpayer ID number request in there. I got my bond in there. I got my state license. I got my state vendor's license. I got my DBA. I got my business name. There's just all kinds of paper. But the feds won't even look at it until you turn all that in. So you got to have your township. You got to be ready to go. It's one of the only businesses in the world where, or at least in the U.S., that you have to be ready to open the door on day one before they'll even think about giving you the license to do it. So that's where I've probably helped somewhere in the neighborhood of 20, maybe 25, between 20 and 25 other distillers get started. All different kinds of questions, should I do this? And there's, a handful of them opted not to go, or, they found out they couldn't, for whatever reason. A lot of guys have passion, but they don't have the right situation, or they don't have the capital. My situation is very unique. At the time, I think there were 3 or 4 other distilleries that were actually located on non-commercial property that was zoned residential or zoned historic. Well, one of them's Mount Vernon, where Steve Batro works at, and there was like a couple other that were experimental. I think one of them is down where it's been a long day, where Alan Bishop does his weekend things down in Louisville with the reenactment. I'm drawing a blank. But there's not too many places you can run a still unless it's at an actual distillery. So, in my case, I'm in the stick. My neighbor is cool as hell. The zoning board, like, yeah, do it. So that'll wind up. The paper side of it, the legal permit side, and I'm not talking about consultation. I'm not talking about legal fees. I'm not talking about building a building, but just the paperwork. I don't think I got $1,000 in all all my permits and the bond, and well, maybe now with the bond. I mean, my bill for the bond literally just came in the mail today. I don't care. it's $20,000 bond. It's $140 for a year. So it's not terrible. I'm not required to have it, but I still keep it because it makes me feel a little better. If something would happen that way, you know, I mean, if God forbid something happens to me and, I die in a car crash or some shit and I owe the government tax, they're going to come get the bond. My wife ain't got to worry about it. And I'll be gone, so I ain't got to worry about the man coming after me. So, that works out for $140 a year. It's $10 a month. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, better have it, not need it,
It's
need
like
it, not have it.
the best insurance is the one you never use, right? But so we got that. Let's see what else is in here. Mike, I had to get. So as far as getting the building ready, though, again, that all kind of depends where you're at. So I'm going to throw a number out, and there's how many people you got watching, Sean? You got a count? Do you know?
I've got 15 on Facebook. I don't know about
how many other out there.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to, I'm going to say this number, and there might be somebody out there that's going to say bullshit. I opened my distillery on day one for under $10,000. I own the property.
Yeah.
The building was already there. The building's already there. Where I'm at now, there's in Ohio again, there's I know where it's at. So funny side story. Well, let me finish where I'm at and I'll come back to it. So one of you guys remind me, if I forget, my buddy from high school, just remind me and I'll know. So there's an exclusion that if you don't have so I use disposable sample cups in the distillery. I don't wash dishes. I'm not required to have hot water. Now, you're probably thinking, well, how the hell can you make, because I got a boiler, right? I got a 50-gallon boiler. I got a 20-gallon boiler and got another, I got all kinds of boilers. I can make hot water. But according to the law, I'm on my property. I have restroom. I don't have plumbing in my distillery. And you guys are probably thinking, what the hell? I don't. Our water system out here, we've got a 500-foot deep well, but I've got a dairy barn I got a 3,000 head dairy farm that's like 2 miles away or a mile away. They're pretty much sucking all the water out. Our water system at the house has been a pond system for her mom and dad put the pond in 77 or 78. So I buy bottled, or I buy water from a local source. It's a deep well. It's a limestone aquifer. It's good water. If you've had, I don't know, but there's a handful of people that are not local that have had my liquor, and it rates. If people like it, it's good. But anyway, so I don't have running water in the building. I don't have hot water in the building. Everything lined up for me, really. So when I tell people I'm into it for less than 10 grand, they're like, bullshit. No, I went and bought some at the time with the cedar cement siding, the 4x8 sheets, redid the barn or redid the shed, put some lights in, it already had power in it. So, I mean, just had to upgrade the box. The still, yeah. I mean, if you're in the right place at the right time, you could do it.
Yeah. Not having to sell all that money for commercial property and wait. It's such a difference, So. Yeah.
And, it kind of all rolls back in. Well, I mean, the federal law, I was again telling Sean earlier, or maybe you're in there too, Ian. The law literally says distillery cannot be located on a residential property, cannot be located in a shed, sub part of the house, it goes on and on. And I got into it with the guy in one of the ADI forums. And if a person wanted to, they could Google distillery in a shed, and I think it pops up on there because I literally came back and said my distillery's in my yard in a shed 100 feet from my house, and here's my DSP to prove it. And he didn't, because the guy was a TTB inspector for like 30 years, and he's like, there's no way. I'm like, well, it is. Tough luck, sorry, you're wrong. But there's some downside with that, like because of the township stipulations. One of the reasons they approved it, I can't have any I can't have any employees that aren't immediate family. So I can have my mom and dad work. My brother can work here. My wife and daughter. That's it. I can't hire anybody else. If I do, I have to go to a different type of zoning, which that's going to require some other things. That's going to require a restroom. That's going to require hot water. All that shit. Which I mean, I'm moving that way. I'm in the process of actually moving into a bigger building here on the property. One thing I will want to make sure that people, somebody out there that's listening or somebody that watches this down the road, and they think, hey, Steve did it, I want to take a shot at it. There is a point when you do have enough money, but I finished up my business degree about 2 years before I started this venture, and the business plan that I wrote in 2013, and this was with me buying a still from the Colonel out in Arkansas, which at that time was like $3,500 or $4,000 for a 60-gallon still. That business plan was about $45,000 in the building that I'm using now. I did it for 10. If I had it to do it over for 10, would I don't know. I mean, 10's good, 20's nice. Obviously the number I came up with, though, the real number was $40,000. 40 is like 43 and change. So almost, I'm not going to throw a number out, but a lot of businesses fail because they don't have the operating capital. Mm-hmm. They can get the doors open, get the lights turned on, but they ain't got the juice to keep it going. And it's really hard to open the door and stumble right out of the gate and then try to go get money. You might have the best plan in the world, but if you can't make it go, it's really hard. And I still have people. There's a handful of local people that they know me well enough. They like the product. They see it. They got some vision too. They're like, hey, if you want to take on an investor, let me know. And I don't owe any. I mean, I got a little bit of credit card. I keep going, and I got an account with LD Carlson over on the other side of the state for some things like that. But I don't have any outstanding loans for the business. Nothing serious like that.
And you don't have to listen to somebody else's input. It's yours. You do it how you want.
It's a great thing, and at the same time, there might be a day where I want to go fishing. I don't feel like making liquor, so the work doesn't get done that day. Instead, you have other, got family obligations, and I have another job. That's where I was kind of going with that. Is I still have a straight job. I'm a manager in a factory. The wife likes stability, likes a steady paycheck, likes having benefits and health insurance, things like that. I mean, you can have that as a small business owner. Those options are out there, but it's something we've kind of struggled to keep the business. I don't want to make it sound the product. If you open a distillery, you will sell all the liquor that you make to your friends and family. The problem is selling them the second bottle and the third bottle and the fourth bottle. You can sell anybody one bottle. To get them to keep coming back, that's the trick. Or to get out there in front of enough people that you don't have to survive based on your repeat business. There's, Tito's is doing it, but that's a whole other story there. So you can't underestimate the operating expense, the operating capital you need to have set back. First thing, obviously get your ducks in a row, local, get your permits in, make sure you got enough money, make sure the plan's solid. Make sure you got a real plan. Don't go back to it. It's like, well, I thought I'd spend $10,000 on electric and plumbing. Maybe I can get away with $5 because a guy owes me a favor. You better bump that to 15. Just to be on the safe side. Everything's getting more expensive every day. Dollars are getting harder to come by, and it's getting harder to separate those dollars from people. So, the other part, you got to have good product, and kind of got to be a salesman.
You got to do it all. You got to be a jack of all trades. You got to hustle it up. You got to make it. You got to do it all. So,
I was going to ask, how many times a month do you generally run? Do you stay real busy, or is there just times of the year where you are?
No, I pretty much shut down for the winter. Since building's kind of primitive. I mean, I got a big ass boiler in there that keeps the room warm, or keeps the building warm. I mean, my building, like I said, if you look me up on the map, It's that little shed. It literally is 192 square feet. It's 13 by 19, something like that. So it don't take much to keep it warm. But no, I got some mash set back now. I try to run enough to make about a barrel worth of product a year. And then I'm trying. Got some stuff set back for agents and stuff for bourbon. I set a smaller barrel back when I first started. I'm like, oh, I want to do one of these. I think it was 10 or 15 gallon barrels. It didn't turn out. It was shitty, so I dumped it. I mean, I don't. Some people are like, oh my god, you dumped 15 or 10 gallons of bourbon. Well, I don't put my name on something that sucks, because you might only get to see somebody one time. You only get one chance to make first impression, right? So went back, read up a little bit more, talked to some other people, got to know a lot of people about, after you get in the business. At that time, it was really amazing how tight the community was. And you wouldn't think, well, 2015, 2016, yeah, that's 7-8 years ago. But nowadays there's like, at that time, I think there were 1,700 DSP numbers. If you start boiling the numbers down, there was something like Diageo. Diageo might have like 10 distilleries. Jim Beam's got like 5 or 6 or 10 distilleries. So you start doing that. There was about 700 unique distilleries, and those DSP numbers also included rectifiers, bottlers. It might be somebody they're buying product from MGP and bottling it themselves. So when it came down to it in 2015, and this is my own checking. Of those 700 or whatever it was, about half of those would be what's considered craft nowadays. So, out of 1,800 DSPs, which every address has a DSP. If it's a distillery, it's got its own DSP number. They're all unique. And that was one of the other things I had to do is I actually had to get a separate mailing address for the shed. So the mailing address for the building is different than my home mailing address. And the mail lady doesn't understand that, but every time I get a new mail carrier, I have to explain to them, A260 is the distillery, A256 is the house. Stop redlining my mail. It's an ongoing struggle with the postal carrier. But so there's just dozens of little things you got to get into to get all that to happen and stuff like that. So, so my buddy from high school, I hadn't seen him in I don't know how long. It probably been 15. It might have been 20 years or so. And we were really tight in middle school. High school, joined the National Guard together, and active was Army and stuff together. Went to infantry school together, and we were in college. We were in the National Guard again together. So knew the guy for like at that time probably 2/3 of my life. So I run into him. His grandmother passed, so I went to the funeral home to go see him and his family and pay my respects. And at the time, when he left Ohio, he went down to Texas. He worked. They don't have Highway Patrol; they have Department of Public Safety. So he was a Texas. He was a trooper, and his lifelong goal was to be a Texas Ranger. And last I heard, he was accepted to the Ranger Academy. He was going to go do that and everything. So I see him at the funeral home. I'm like, "Oh, hey, how you doing?" He's like, "Pretty good. Was hoping I'd see you and catch up, whatever." And he asked me, he's like, "So what have you been up to lately?" I'm like, selling. At the time, I was selling cars. I'm like, I'm doing this, and so I got a little still set up, making some liquor, figuring things out, and so I'm thinking about. And he asked me, he's like, "You legal?" I'm like, I'm thinking about going legal. I don't know yet. Just kind of like I said, figuring things out. What are you up to? Oh, I work I moved back to Ohio. I work for liquor enforcement, and I'd literally I was drinking something and about spit it out in the mouth. He's like, "We can back the conversation up 10 minutes if you want to." But it's just, ironic that my best friend from high school, I'm telling the guy, I'm basically making liquor illegally in the backyard. And what do you do? Oh, I bust people like you. I mean, that's literally, he works for liquor enforcement, which it's a division of public safety under the state patrol. They're in other states they'd be what you call ALE. So he's one of those guys. He left. He retired from there a few months ago. But anyways, he was another resource I had if I had a question about. Like in Ohio, there's it's paragraph G under the sanitation clause. You can actually get a waiver and sign off on it that says, I attest that I do not have any, or that I'm using reusable serving utensils. I don't reuse, so I don't have to have hot water. There's an affidavit for that. But anyways, a little sidebar thing. So, but it's just one of those things in my situation. The stars aligned and everything just worked out the way it did. So,
are you in stores? Are you in stores?
No, I
just straight from your distillery.
Yeah, I've pretty much every bottle that I've ever sold is basically been, after conversation, a handshake, and there's some of the local bars around here we can sell. They changed the law. I want to say it was 17. I think it was 17 or 18. And Ohio had a modernization thing. They made it so that an A3A could bypass the warehouse and sell direct to a permit holder, which would be like a bar, restaurant, club.
All right.
Can't sell to a liquor store direct.
Yeah.
There's a workaround. So if there's any of the small distillers out here, if you guys aren't doing this, your state auditor might be willing to do a transfer for you, which will save you. Now, I think you still have to pay like some of the case handling fees because the warehouse, Ohio means job, has still got to process it. But in my case, my agent that does my auditing, and this was a couple years, I haven't brought it up since, but a couple years ago, he said, hey, if you want to put some of your product in, now where I'm located at, a lot of places around the state, we got Giant Eagles, we got Kroger's, we got Myers, Carry Liquor. In my neighborhood, it's Rite Aid. If you look at the map, Williams County, so I'm in Henry County. My local liquor store in Henry County is a Rite Aid. The county directly to the north of me, the county directly to the south of me, they're both Rite Aids. If you look at what we call the 6-county area, the other 3 counties that are to the west of me, it's a Rite Aid, a privately held liquor store, and then another Rite Aid. So now if you go to the east, you got Lima, Bowling Green, Toledo. They got Kroger, they got other stores and shit.
Yeah.
But my the guy that I have that does my audits up here, he told me, he's like, hey, if you want to put a case of liquor and write it in Napoleon, just let me know, dude. I'll do transfer. I can take it up there. You can't take it, but I can take it. And they do inter-store transfers all the time when they cross-level inventory. So say you got a Giant Eagle on one side of Columbus that's not selling whatever. They're just not selling Hennessy at this one store, and they might need it at another store across town. They'll cross level it. So they'll just call the agent and say, hey, I need to move 5 cases of this over there because I don't need it, and they do. So the agent will come pick it up and move it. So if you anybody out there that's in Ohio that's got a permit, that's an option that's available to you. The other, and hasn't been changed as far as I know, is the Ohio grown fruit loophole. That might be something you might want to message me direct if you want. But it'll save you a significant amount of your state taxes, and you can argue that corn is a fruit. So if you're using corn grown in Ohio, you can reduce your taxes from 40 to 8%. I said
that's
40,
crazy.
40 to 8%. So you're 32% tax reduction just by using Ohio grown corn or wheat. I mean, literally the wheat berries, right? Go to the health food store. It's wheat berries.
Yeah.
The other, but yeah, somebody wants to talk about that, feel free to shoot a message or, go through Sean or Easy here, and, we can talk about that offline. I mean, it's above board. It's legal. And I got another, there's a form for it. It's got to be notarized. Ohio food affidavit. Sign and notarized. I'm using Ohio grown fruit. saving me 32% of my Ohio excise tax.
Nice.
So
Apple Valley, man. We live in Apple Valley.
there you go. Yeah, it's making brandy. I mean, that's
Yeah.
it was originally one of those things that I'm sure the wine people up, Catawba, they got that passed through. But the last line that says, it must be the juice of grapes or fruits entirely grown in Ohio. So corn's one of those nifty things. It's a grain, it's a vegetable, it's a fruit. Just depends on whether it's in the ear, in the bucket, or where it's at. So if it's ground,
So,
whatever.
You do yeast starters? Is that what you do with with that kind of stuff?
With what now?
Like apples. You crush them up just for a yeast starter, just to use that much to.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. Said if you take one apple, I got a handful of fruit trees out. I got mulberry. If anybody likes mulberries, you are more than welcome to come get some. Hickory nuts too. I got apple trees out here in the yard. Just go grab an apple, crush it, throw it in the yeast. That is making liquor with the fruit that's grown in Ohio. So, and I keep a bag of them in the garage that I pick in the fall, and they stay cool and they stay crisp until springtime comes around. So
That's awesome.
That's it.
So speaking of yeast,
Nathan told me that. It wasn't anything I didn't figure it out. I'll think of his name here in a minute. I haven't seen that guy in like 7 or 8 years. He might be retired by now.
But yeah, speaking about yeast, talk a little bit about that. Because there's a lot of people out there that say they don't use yeast, and
so yeah, I came up with a short list of things that you might want to talk. They're just things that myths or whatever you've heard on the internet. It's like, I got a platform. We'll talk about some of this other stuff. It's not so boring as talking about laws and regulations and shit. But I just into this day and age, I can't believe there's still some people out there that say, "Oh, I don't need yeast to make my liquor." I mean, it's everywhere. It's in your house right now. You may or may not know it, but it's there. The easiest thing is if you got some fruit, go look at it. If it's got some white residue on it, that's yeast.
Mm-hmm.
But you hear it's not quite so prevalent now. But 4, 5, 7, 8 years ago, kind of when I first started, butt heads. I mean, social media it's evolved. Obviously, at first it was really cool and way to catch up with people you ain't seen in 10 or 20 whatever years since high school. Nowadays, it just seems like people want to go out there and show how much they know and argue with somebody. Yeah. So it's still cool that there's still places, still groups out there you can talk with people and have civil conversation. But yeah, early into some of the Facebook groups, you talk to people. It's like, oh, I don't use any yeast. I'm like, what? No, I don't use it. I get my yeast from the malt. Like, there ain't no fucking yeast in malt. who are you trying to kid? Oh, and I mean, there's people like, I'll come to your house and kick your ass. And like, no, I'm telling you, there's yeast. You're using it. You just don't know. My own thought. It's kind of for the sake of civility. We'll try to steer clear of the television shows as much as possible. But you get some of those people that maybe that's their thing. I don't 100% yeast free. I don't know. Maybe they're trying to be gluten free or some shit too. I mean, liquor already is, but that's another thing. Anything that's distilled is gluten free. I mean, you can't put it on a label because unless you actually test for it, but that's the truth. So, but yeah, I mean, you got to use yeast. You guys know that. You have to. Whether if you're not adding a yeast to the mash yourself, you're either lazy or you don't care. It's one of those two things.
Or just picks up before you get a chance to.
Yeah,
the natural yeast.
Yeah, sometimes that natural yeast take off before you get
especially
to it.
Grapes and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, the white anything that's got a white film on it, that's yeast. So fruit is
right.
Fruit will take off by itself. You could just let it set.
You can go out and walk through your yard. If you got fruit trees out there, you can smell it. Mm-hmm. Especially apples. I got 2 wild apple trees in my ditch. I mean, they put up hundreds of pounds of apples. And you start getting down there, you can start smelling. They're fermenting. I mean, that's how shit decomposes. That's how we have dirt. Fruit decomposes. It turns into dirt. So, but yeah, it's one of those things. One of those things. Just a lot of wives' tales and myths. I mean, we've all heard some of them, but the yeast is just the one that's like, yeah. Do you really? The guy you're talking to, does he really know as much as he says he does? I don't know. I don't know.
So what was the first size still you ever ran on?
20.
20.
Well, okay. The first one I successfully ran was a 20 I got from Matt. I tried to run the father-in-law's 50. It was just terrible. I found side story. My brother used to be a city cop in Columbus. Now he's a Fed. But he was about 3 or 4 years in, and he's like, "Hey, I'm coming up to Louisville for some training this weekend. I'm going to surprise Mom and Dad. What are you doing?" I'm like, "I think we should make some liquor." He's like, "Oh, yeah, let's do that." So I got some turbo yeast. I got some corn from Tractor Supply. I went to the brew shop in Toledo, got like 5 pounds of malt, and tried to put all this shit together. And it bubbled a little. I mean, I actually got it to ferment a little bit. And like I said, we filled the barrel up and made a real nice flower seal. I was all proud of it. Took a picture and sent it to the father. I'm like, "Check that out." He's like, "Cool, you're doing it." We didn't do shit but drink beer that night. Got rained on. Went through, froze up 20 pound tanks of propane. It was just not a fun night. And to boot, that was the night that Ohio State got beat by Virginia Tech. So it was just bad all around.
That's how it goes.
Well, except the in-laws were happy because they're from down there. But anyway, so I hear about that shit for a year till we curb stomped them in Blacksburg. But so yeah, the first one I actually ran was his 50, and then now I still use that barrel. That friggin' barrel. It's there's a picture of it somewhere on Facebook floating around. It is not like a normal barrel. It's like bulged. It's shaped like that. It's like 24, 26 inches across top, but it's like 36 at the middle, and then back down to like 22 or 24 at the bottom, whatever it is. But that thing holds like 60 gallons. It weighs 100 and some pounds. It's all beat to hell, but it's what he used, and him and the guy from work, they would set up once every 2 months. They would set up 16 55-gallon blue barrels and put a sack of corn and a sack of sugar in each one, and they would run that shit off in a weekend. They'd run off 16 barrels. Yeah, they'd run off 16 55-gallon barrels of mash. I mean, whatever, it's 7-8 hours a run, whatever it takes. But they would start on Thursday night. One of them would call off on Friday, and they would just keep it going, through Monday morning nonstop.
That's awesome. All right, it's done. Empty it out. Fill it back up. Let's get it going. It's still hot.
Yeah, I mean, from what he told me, they didn't even turn the fire off. They used propane, a propane burner.
Yeah.
Where they set up, they had a side in the barn, and he had hogs, he had horses, but they had this. The still was set up on blocks. They would literally just kick it over, and the barrel would empty out into a trough, and they would sweep the trough off into the back lot behind the barn, and then they just bring the barrel back up, fill it, cap it. I mean, they'd be going again, and the barrel's still retaining a lot of the thermal mass, so it's you're not heating it. It's still got to be heated up, whatever to.
You ain't got to wait. You ain't got to wait for the metal to get warm. That metal's already warm.
Right. And like I said, that barrel, that thing, I want to say, I put a caliper on it, put some mics on it. It's like a 3/8 thick wall. I mean, it is not a regular steel barrel. Another peeve. Talk about the yeast thing. Yes, pure alcohol boils at 173.2. Yours still does not run off at 173.
No.
I'm not even going to. I hope I hope the audience is smart enough to know that. And I was one of those guys. I'm like, but alcohol does it. And it was I think it was on Moonshiner. I was one of the Facebook, one of the bigger Facebook. They got like 30,000 members now or something or whatever it is. And this guy from Louisiana, he's like, dude, you need to go back and learn what you think. You don't know what you don't know. And then one day it just clicked because I'm watching my still, and I sent Matt a message. I'm like, yeah, still's about 185, 190. He's like, yeah, it'll be about 200. It'll start coming off. I'm like, well, you start getting tails and shit like that, or you get your fours, and like, yeah, it that's the thing, low and slow. I'm not going to do that because I don't know what the crowd is. I may get some hate mail or
Not
something.
low and slow. It's not. They're not low
Do
and
each your
slow.
own, like
No,
do each your
no.
own. However
I
you
got
want to run it, that's the way to do it. So
yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. You run it as hard and as fast as you can, and I've made liquor myself, and I wasn't sure, so I've talked to other people that have run liquor, and the consensus amongst people that I know that have actually made liquor, it doesn't matter how hard if you run your still up to 210 degrees as fast as you get it there, that just saves you 3 hours. That the next guy, I'm running 12 hours. Good for you. You wasted half your day, literally half a day.
Yep.
I run my still twice in 12 hours.
I know the first time I ever ran a copper pot, Donnie said that Donnie Benton built it, and it had a thermometer in the barrel.
Mhm.
And he said, run the son of a bitch until the thermometer in the pot says 190. And he said, just back it down a little bit, and it'll creep up. As soon as it hits 197, you'll have liquor out of the worm. And
Yep.
son of a
You
bitch.
get it about 200 as quick as you can, and then play with it from there. Because I mean, your water doesn't boil at at sea level. If you want to get scientific about shit, because I don't want somebody sharp shooting me and like, well, at sea level, water boils at 212 point, whatever it is. You put a little bit of pressure on it, it's going to come down a little bit, but I mean, your pot shouldn't have maybe 2, maybe 5 psi. I mean, you shouldn't have any pressure. But yeah, I was one of those guys for the first couple of years, like, it boils at 173. I'll sit there all fucking night and watch that needle, 170, 170. It took me 12, 13 hours. I'm like, I ain't getting nothing.
Yep, that's why.
You get a little more heat. And, it makes a lot of sense where there's a thermometer on the still. It's not the gospel to me. It's just kind of a reference. It's like, probably better get serious,
So it'll let you know, like, all right, we're getting close.
Yeah.
That thing's moving. All right. It's a guide. Use it as a guide.
Yeah.
I was going to say, even at that, you see people post on Facebook all the time. Well, my still is at 173 or 178. Why is it not doing anything? We'll just be like, okay, turn the heat up.
Well, the one thing that I kept forgetting was that it's ETOH is a solution, right? So you guys probably seen the T-shirts with the joke, right? So it is. I mean, it's a solution of water and alcohol and a bunch of other shit. There's acetaldehyde and there's acetates and there's methanol and all kinds of other stuff in there. I forget what I'll be honest. At one time I was that guy that knew this and knew that and the other, and at this point it's a lot of bullshit. I mean, it's not bullshit in the sense that it's not true. It's just most people don't care. Yeah,
it's science, but if you don't need it, then you don't need it.
Einstein said there's no reason to commit something to memory you can look up in a book. The true intelligence is knowing where to find the answer. So, I mean, I had a chemistry teacher in high school told us that first guy that let us use open book test, and I've kind of lived by that, or tried to. There's no sense trying to memorize something. If I got a book right there, I can look it up. I don't need to know it. Hold on a second, because you're not going to believe me, but you'll believe the book, right? Or a book, generally.
Right.
Nowadays, who knows? Depends what news channel you watch, or whatever. But what library you go to,
or TV show you watch.
When it comes to TV shows, people forget it's TV. Just because something's touted as reality TV, it's never reality TV, man. It's a TV show. It's for entertainment. Take it as entertainment value.
Yeah.
And question everything you see.
I think
it's entertainment.
So way back, the wife and I, the reason I'm even on here is because of her dad. So the family's kind of, it's all intermingled, intertwined here. So But we've been together. So I had to go. I was talking to Sean earlier today. I had to go pick up a loft bed I bought for my kid off Facebook. Had to go rent a U-Haul trailer because it was raining. My trailer's at mom and dad's house. My dad's got a bunch of tools in it. I'll stop for the story there. So, anyways, I'm talking to the girl at the counter, and she asked for my cell phone number, and my daughter thought she had the right number, and I'm like, that's your mom's number. So we got talking, and I told the daughter, I'm like, well, your mom and I have been together for 21 years or 20 years, going on 21 now. But in the early days of the relationship, we never talked about things that like her mom and dad did, off on the side and things like that. But so anyways, back then her dad had the big old satellite dish, and we bought the house and everything that came with it. So we got the big satellite dish. We're watching MTV, and there was this show that she watched. I didn't really pay much attention to it, but it was on in the background. The Hills on MTV, one of the first reality shows that there was. Blew me away the very last episode where they're all saying goodbye and shit, and you literally watched them pull down the wall of the steps. And it's like, what the fuck? Because I'll be honest, I thought that shit was real right up until that last episode. And that show went off the air in like 08 or 09. And it was kind of so surreal that wouldn't expect, alcohol people to do that, right? Tim and JB and those. I mean, JB didn't come on till halfway through, but I talked to. I know a lot of the guys. They've been on. I've met them. I'm not gonna say I know them. Like go hang out at the bar and shit. I don't. Hell, I'm in Ohio. I'm 200 miles away from most of them, but I've met a lot of those guys. And early on, somebody like George Rose. He's like, well, they got the show on TV, but it's a show, right? And it was kind of it was the worst kept secret, in the distilling community, I guess. It's like, well, and then you start seeing things in the show are like, you can't do that. That doesn't make sense. You go talk to somebody else like, hey, did you see this show? Yeah, I watched it. Like, and there's a lot of things that it's entertainment. It's entertainment. I'll be honest, I haven't watched an episode of any of it. I think Sean, I think when you were on the episode, I think that was the last time I watched any of it. Master Distiller or any like Distillery Rescue. I talked to a couple of those guys, like Greg Pope. He's like, man, it's the worst thing that's ever happened to me. Because, well, now let me back up. I'll put words in Greg's mouth. It was something I forget exactly what he said, but I guess one of the struggles he had about it was he would talk about how people would come in. They didn't know he was there, didn't know who he was. It's like, oh yeah, we saw Tim come down and save your distiller. You're probably pretty happy he came and did that for you, huh? And he's like, man, I was doing fine before Tim came here, and it got that spin put on it. So, and I'm not trying to cause any ill will between Greg and Tim. It's just it's
right. Now
I've heard from several people that's people that I hold in very high regard. The one and only original mud fossil hunter himself, Mr. Alan Bishop. He does not have kind words to say about the show or McGill Entertainment for that matter. I'll leave Alan to his opinions, but Alan, he's one of those people that Sean, we were chatting before, obviously. Alan, Greg Leopold, there's
he's got the three chambers still, doesn't he? Leopold?
Yeah, I had some last year, not 2022, but 2021 Bourbon on the Banks in Frankfurt, which I'm not monetized. I don't get any money from anybody really. My wife takes most of mine, to be honest. But
it's a trend.
It's in Frankfurt. I think it's October the 9th or 10th. It's the second weekend in October this year. Fantastic event. It's small. It's still local. It's attainable. And a lot of the smaller Kentucky distillers are down there. Hunter Coffees, he was down there last year. He's been there. Alan sets up with French Lick, but it's mostly liquor. But there's also a few wineries, and I think there was like 2 or 3 breweries around Kentucky that were in there. But it's a fantastic event. If you get if you guys are if you're free that weekend, if you're out there listening, it is worth going.
What's it called again?
Bourbon on the Banks.
Bourbon on the Banks. I have to check
Yeah.
that out.
It's like I said, it's the second weekend in October this year. Usually phenomenal weather too. It's you're early October in Ohio, you could get anything from 80 and sunshine to freaking sleet and snow,
or tornado or hurricane or earthquake. It just
all the above.
You get all in one day.
Sometime in one day, right? It's you don't like it, wait 5 minutes.
Where was that?
It's in Frankfurt. But a lot of Buffalo Trace is there. You can go get a sample. Now it's so how where it's like your typical alcohol festival. I think it's last year it was I think $60 or $65 for a regular wristband, and if you want to go VIP, I think it's $70. It might be $100. But it's getting to be a little bit bigger. The first it's been pretty much the same format. This is going to be the fourth event. They had one in 2019. They canceled 2020 like everybody else. They did one in 21. They did one in 22. And it's pretty much something that starts on Friday. They do basically a New Orleans Mardi Gras style street fair downtown in Frankfurt. They have literally circus acts walking around. They got stilt walkers and fire breathers and all that shit. Then they wrap up officially at whatever time. They've got some historic activity Saturday morning, and then they do the tasting, and shit starts at 1 or 2 o'clock if you're VIP or whatever, and it goes until like 6, and then they shut down, and they have live music on the green, the park, because they have a riverside park right there in Frankfurt, and if you don't want to do that, then they got some other shit going on uptown that night again, but you're not. As far as the bourbon royalty or the liquor royalty, you're not going to run into Fred Minnick. You're not going to see Chuck Cowdery. You're probably not going to see Bernie Lovers. Any of those guys that are. I mean, they're guys that are. They've been doing the bourbon thing for at least. They were there before it started, right? 15, 20 years ago. And it is called Bourbon on the Banks, but it's not just bourbon. It's not just only bourbon or whiskey. I mean, there's got Turner Wathen. If you don't know Turner, check his stuff out. He doing some phenomenal things with rum. Last year, I don't know if you come across this, but he made a mistake and opened up a bottle of rum that he did not want to. He was holding it back, but he'd been sampling all day, and Alan may have been part of the reason he did this. But it was a bottle that probably would have sold for $300, and we polished that thing off in like half. I mean, not just me. I had a couple, like one finger sample, but he's like, that bottle was gone, and I don't know where it went to. But doing some great things with rum. There's Rivulet. If you don't know, it's a pecan-based liquor. It's great for making cocktails and shit. But there's all kinds of alcohol down there. It's not just people making bourbon. Yeah, Four Rose. No, Four Rose. But yeah. So Buffalo Trace is there. They got their Eagle Rare. They got their Blanton's. They got their Buffalo Trace. Angel's Envy's there. French Lick was there. So you're going to get some of the bigger. You're going to get the national brands. And you're going to get some other guys that, they may just be starting out. They literally got a card table with freaking tablecloth on it. And they're just trying to, get the name out there. But well worth checking the place out.
Okay. And can you buy their products there?
Yeah. This is the first year they'll let you. You can.
What about out of state? I was wondering about Alan.
If you're out of state, no. I think they have to be. I bought some bottles there. Well, yeah, because the bourbon people, they did a pick. I got a bottle in the garage, but they did a Wilderness Trail pick with Pat down there at Wilderness Trail, and there was a board. It was Amsey winning and Allen, and I think maybe Tony Minichella and some of those other guys. Maybe Royce was in there. And they picked the barrel. And if you were on the pre-buy list or whatever, you get a bottle. It was $100, but I mean, And I don't. I've got like 4 bottles of liquor out here that I paid more than $100 for, and I'm gonna say that's one of them. That was $100. I got a bottle behind me that's back here, and then a bottle of Weller, William Weller, and I think I got one more. Maybe I only got 3. I don't know. Anyways, but yeah, it's just fun time. It's small. It's local. They only had like maybe 4,000 or 5,000 people last year. I mean, that's heavy. I don't think there was that many. But Christy's down there. She does a podcast that night. The 2021, we tried to stay at the Capitol Hotel is right across the road, so it's very convenient. But one of the guys that for AMZ, if you guys know who AMZ Winning is, he happened to get a conference room, like his hotel room had a conference table and shit. We had our own tasting there. We didn't go uptown. We had some of the 3 chamber. That's how we got here. This conversation even happened because you mentioned Todd Leopold and the 3 chamber still. AMZ had a bottle of that there, and it was like, wow. There's a lot of depth to that. It's complex. Just a lot of stuff going on. I don't have my notes in front of me. I'm not going to try to make them up, but it was just really it was unique and different in a very good way. So I'm glad to hear that he's still keeping that going. But yeah, if you get a chance to get down there and catch up with those guys, you might be able to get a chance to get some product like that.
Hell yeah. Good deal.
So anything else on that list you want to talk about, Sean, or anything you don't want to talk about?
We'll talk about anything.
Yeah, it doesn't much matter to me at all.
But yeah, this neat glass, I got this. Tony was supposed to come down to drink in AMZ's hotel room that night, and he fell and dislocated his shoulder, so he ended up in the ER. But it's a neat glass. You guys have ever seen one of these? A little bit different than your regular Glencairn. You get a lot better representation, and you do get a different taste with this. But AMZ gave me his glass. So that's another, got that from down there. But if you're real serious about tasting your liquor, it's a good glass to have. I mean, the highball is great. Glencairn, everybody's got them, but the problem is the Glencairn's a Copita shape, and that is more really for wine. I mean, that's what it's a sherry glass is what it is. So I just like good old heavy glass and crystal glass. So
if you're making something to drink for yourself, what would it be?
I mean, I enjoy drinking bourbon. I'm kind of I'll admit I'm a bourbon snob. Like, if you finish your bourbon in another barrel, it is not bourbon anymore. I know there's some people that say, well, you can't make it not bourbon. Well, you can. You can put syrup in it. It's not bourbon anymore. But as far as where liquor's going, I do enjoy brandy. I'm trying to learn how to enjoy it more. It's very complex. And if you talk to Alan, he's one of those guys. If I got a question, I'll call him. And I know, Sean, when you and I talked kind of the first time, I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Let's ask Alan. You're like, well, is he available? I'm like, yeah, just fucking let me text him. Hold on, and he's there. So, he's a guy who can sit and hang out all day, just sit and talk, just bullshit, not even talk about liquor, just talk about other shit. Like I'm building a guitar right now, and he's like, "Oh, let me know how that's going." But literally building a Les Paul from like chunks of wood, and it's been an experience. But he's one of those guys where he's just, I mean, everything he touches is about solid gold. There's actually if I don't know how long do you go with this? You just like go and edit this shit, or you just go until we run out of liquor, get tired of each other, or what?
We don't edit anything, man. We
generally just do for around an hour or so, and then whenever's good, man.
Yeah, sometimes they're running a little over. I mean, hell, we listen to Alan talk for 2.5 hours.
So yeah, well, it's funny because when I did the show with Alan and Christy, I think it was 2 years ago. they ended up making my episode. It was split into two shows because we went for about 220, 215, something like that. So, we just let it go. We actually we just did it one night, I guess. We just kept going. And I mean, we talked about all kinds of shit, but
we edit nothing. There's zero editing that goes on around here. This is
good. Transparency.
It's legit going to stay just like this. The only difference is I'm going to download the audio and put it on Spotify.
Right,
we ain't changing nothing. We ain't cutting that out. So,
well, let me. There's a couple things. Well, yeah. If somebody who's out there, I mean, like I said earlier, I've helped. I'm gonna say about 24 distilleries. I've talked to about 24 people about starting distilleries, and then not just somebody with the ball or some shit like that. Like, oh, you're that guy. I mean, like, emails and phone calls and shit. But if somebody's got a real question, just feel free to shoot me a message. I don't. It's like calling psychic hotline. The first phone call's free, But if we need more than that, we'll talk. But if you want to ask me questions about what kind of zoning, I'll get you started. I'll talk to you. And there's Sean probably there's other people out there, but I'm pretty much an open book. So let's see. What we talked about the yeast. We talked about making bourbon, not bourbon. Like Angel's Envy. It's one of those things on Facebook. Argued people. It's like Angel's Envy ain't fucking bourbon and Jack Daniels is. And people are like, what? So might as well kick their dog or something. But I don't make the laws. I just got to live by them. Got to work by them.
So what's your take on all these awards? Like all these small craft distilleries, and I mean, is that?
I don't have any.
Well, I mean, are those awards? Is that something that you have to enter yourself, or is there like an invitation kind of thing, or how does that work?
No, you can enter. I mean, you basically send them the check, send them 3 or 4 bottles, whatever they ask for, and that's pretty much it. Now, I don't. Okay, the way those are. The first thing everybody needs to understand is that whether Sean, do you drink Coke or Pepsi?
I mean, I'll drink either, but I prefer Coke.
Okay.
Sean prefers Mountain Dew. Don't let him lie.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the reason. That's the reason why Mountain Dew was made to mix with cheap liquor. Right? That's what the story is. But
now we know why Sean likes it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the story. I heard it from I forget somebody, but anyway, that's why they called it that. But it's completely up to the individual. If you like this or that. Now, some people. Okay, let's talk about store picks. This is driving me nuts in the way. You know what? Well, okay, I'll just keep touching the screen. The screen is about to shade out. So let me do this real quick here. So behind me, I got a whole bunch of bottles of stuff. So you guys can kind of see some of that little bit of everything.
Brandy looks good.
Do what?
Apple brandy right there.
No. Oh yeah. Alan's. This is. So the first time I actually met Alan was at a festival they had in Nashville, Indiana, at Hard Truth Hills. It was a brand new distill. Well, I don't know if it was brand new, but it was the first festival they did down there, and that was the first weekend in October, and it was god awful hot. I mean, I looked at the historical forecast, and it was like, oh, it's supposed to be around the 70s, maybe low 80s. It was fucking 95 degrees, and we were in a damn still. The Rick House was. I mean, we were literally sweating our asses off. It was miserable. And there was like 5,000 people in this building. They had narrow slit windows. They had one man door at one end and no man door at the other. And these windows were like a foot wide and 3 foot tall. And they had like 30 on each side. And the building's 100 some feet long. It just sucked. But anyways, Alan was there. First time I met him and his wife. And we walked around and I sold cars for a long time, so I'm kind of a politician. I like where I work at. There's about 200 people. There's maybe 3 of them that I would go out of my way to avoid at a bar. Everybody else I'll sit and talk to, be friends with them, and whatever. And even if I don't like the product, there's still something good about it, right? But that was the first place that I went to. It's probably the fourth or fifth. It's a tasting event, and there was at that time like 40 or 50 distilleries there. There were maybe 3 products I had that were remarkable, and by that I mean something that I actually remember tasting. Aside from Allen's stuff, but and that's one of the things I put on. Did I leave that on the list or did I take it off? It was like, why do most craft products?
Yeah.
Like why do most craft moonshines? And I'm not saying these
the same. Right.
Yeah. Why do they taste the same? If I get a rum from distillery A and distillery B and distillery C, and they're in 3 different states, they still taste the same. If I get a moonshine, moonshine, which, well, I'm not going to go into that whole thing, but I was going to talk about why, moonshine is it whiskey? Because I was on one of Silcott's threads the other day. Where guys like, well, moonshine is not whiskey. Well, you can actually add sugar, but I'm not going to go into that. So, do you know what you think you know? But I do like brandy, and after the show was over, the wife and I stayed at whatever the hotel was. It was like down a hill and up the hill, but we walked there. We walked to the distillery from the hotel, and Alan drove back, and we swapped bottles. And he had this. This is a. I hope I don't get in trouble with. Well, it's been a while, but if anybody noticed, it's a 90 proof straight apple brandy. It's not the same bottle they put out nowadays. It was a pre.
Prior.
Trial. Then we got the FUBAR. But one of the things the wife loved from that Hard Truth Hills was the Hard Truth cinnamon. And if you like making cocktails, cinnamon, it's good. They sell it up around Fort Wayne. They're getting around in Indiana, so it's an attainable bottle that's out there for you guys. But finished. I got so another shameless plug. I'm in a group. It's called Angel Share, and it's a charity organization. And we basically raffle off liquor. You buy tickets, proceeds go towards whatever the charity is that week. But they do some private bottling. So maybe you don't win the raffle, but you can still enter one of the barrel picks. And I think they're doing like 20 barrel picks this year. But one of them I happened to get was from Huber's, and it is it's a cigar batch finished in Brazilian Ambarana barrels. So it's a limited edition thing. You still got to buy the bottle. But anyways, So, it's a group. If you're interested in that, let me know. Again, I'll get out to you. We had something big happen the last couple of days. So MGP bought Penelope. So
I was going to get into MGP and a little bit of that, just because a lot of people don't really know where to get. Well, that was something you were talking about. Where to get that stuff, or really
should you source it? Do you want to? Yeah. So let me put the stand back down. I've been in the game a while. I ain't trying to say it on like Jim Beam or George Dickel, somebody like that, but coming up on close to 9 years now. If you're starting out, you obviously got to sell something to keep the lights on. You got to pay the bills. And the question was brought up one time, and this was like one of these little talks. It was myself and a couple of distillers, and we were talking, and it's like, well, I'm thinking about sourcing some products. Now, 10 years ago, it was like, oh, so you're going to buy something from somebody else? Well, the truth is a lot of people buy shit from other people. The one thing I would suggest do what now?
Well, a lot of people don't even know that when they're drinking it.
No, they don't. And that's, you get some people that are very passionate about transparency in the business. And, if you're somebody that's just starting to dabble, into thinking like, I might want to have a distillery. Okay, cool. There are So one of the things that changed on the bond I talked about earlier. So you got distillers, you got rectifiers, and you got warehousemen. A warehouseman basically is a distributor. Still got to have DST. If you're a blender, you may not be making the liquor, but you're still blending the liquor. That's, or maybe you're buying it and letting it age yourself. Maybe you're buying it, putting it in a barrel, and putting it on a ship out to sea. Maybe. I don't know. Sounds kind of gimmicky, but those fuckers sell, thousands and thousands of cases. I mean, hundreds of thousands of cases a year. Or put it on a truck and drive around the country. Whatever. I don't know. Somebody's doing that now, I guess. But there's all different strokes for different folks. So MGP, it's Midwest Grain Products. They are, they're actually headquartered in Kansas. I think it's Atkinson, Atkinson, whatever, somewhere in Kansas. Maybe it's Topeka, I don't know. But they also have this huge ass facility in Lawrenceburg, Indiana, which is not too far from Cincinnati. And it used to be the old Seagram distillery, and it is freaking huge. And they make, not so much now, but 10 years ago, again, we keep going back 10 years, they didn't have any private labels. They didn't make any of their own liquor. Not that I'm aware of. They might have had like a gin or something that was, some old stock label or whatever. But as far as the bourbon and stuff, I forget how many different formulations they've got, or how many grain bills, how many mash bills. But it's not like opening your grandma's cookbook. There ain't like 75 or 80 recipes in there. There's like 5 or 6. So the conversation came up, but it was an online chat one time, and the conversation came up about Smooth Ambler because they were always pretty transparent, and they got good product. I got 4 or 5 of their bottles out here in the shop, or in the house somewhere around here. And I made a comment about just being able to manage your customers, your client base expectation when you transition from sourced product to your own product. Because those of us that are old enough to remember the New Coke fiasco, that did not go over well. And I forget what it was. I think I said something that pissed John Little off. And John, John started Smooth Ambler, good guy, good product. Again, I like them. I like what they're doing. I admire their business model and shit. I've spent hours talking with their one of their head distillers down in Travis. But whatever I did, I tweaked John the wrong way, I think. And that wasn't my intent, but what I did want to be clear though is that if you're going to source product, just be straight up front about it. So look at Brown Brothers in Illinois. Their first product they came out, their product line was called Notter Bourbon, Knotter. So they had Notter Bourbon and Notter Rye. Well, that's just a play on words, meaning not our bourbon, not our rye, right? So they just put it together and made a little label to go with it. Shit, really, still really good, but it's from MGP. So another one, I'll pick on somebody in Ohio. I think I'm right, but so Horse Soldier, great story, nice guys. I haven't met them, don't know, wouldn't know any of them from Adam. Put them line up, I wouldn't know. But so is it Middle West or Watershed making that? It's one of them. It's coming out of Columbus.
Probably
yeah,
Watershed.
one of them makes it. So if you're going to sell the product, and they don't hide it. I don't have a bottle of it here. I've had it. It's good. It tastes good. But if you're going to start out, don't be afraid to source it. You can go to these people, and it's not like if you're sitting home and you're trying to kitchen table this thing, trying to put numbers together, you're not going to go. You could go to MGP and say, hey, I want to buy a barrel of whatever 10-year-old high rye bourbon, and I want to buy 2 truckloads of it, whatever, or buy 8,000 gallons, buy a tanker, and they'd probably sell you that. And you would at the current market, you would probably pay. But it's not like you're buying the bottle. They're selling you bulk at wholesale, so those options are out there. I would say to somebody that's thinking about sourcing product, any established distillery in your area would probably be willing to work with you. if you don't want to go the route of running a still. If you hate your job, you're going to quit tomorrow morning, and you want to open a distillery, and you decide this is what you want to do, and you got the money sitting in a pile, and you're ready to go. You get your paperwork in line and call. MGP may not be an option anymore. They've got their own shit out there now. They bought the Remus product, which I got a bottle of the Remus too. I think really good stuff. But they got that. They got the 8 and Sand. They got the regular. They got the George Remus, and they got the Remus Repeal or Prohibition Reserve or whatever it is. But you don't have to go to the biggest guy on the block. You probably go to Dickel. Probably go to Beam. Probably go to Brown Campbell. All the really big distilleries that probably work with you a little bit. Or like in Ohio, I know, like I said, I know it's either Watershed or Middle West. I forget which one. One of them was making the Horse Soldier stuff. Now they're building their own distillery in Kentucky, but again, how you have to see how are they going to handle this transition from their product coming off of something somebody else made, because a distillery is so. Let's pick on Buffalo Trace. They're in Frankfurt. It's kind of away from everybody else. Yeah, Wild Turkey's just down the road in Versailles. Four Roses is just down the road in Versailles. And those are other distilleries that have been there a while. I know Hunter's just down the road, not too far, but they're like 10 years old too, or around there, maybe 15. I don't know. But Buffalo Trace is its own little microclimate. There's yeast floating around that property that's been there tens of years. I mean, it's been there decades, if not longer. Because the yeast had to come from somewhere, right? They may have gotten a wild strain. So don't think that you're going to take your high rye recipe that you gave to XYZ distiller that they've been making for you, because this is what we're going to make, and we want you to make this. You know as well as I do, Sean, because you're on the show. You have 3 people with the same still and the same mash, and all 3 of you going to make different products. You could get 8 different. You get 8 different products. You take 3 guys running the same mash. You can take mash out of the same barrel, and you're going to get 3 different products because you're going to make your cuts different. Now,
it never tastes the same. That's the biggest difference.
Yeah,
run is the person running it.
Yeah, and I mean, you could be on a 500-gallon column still, and it's going to be close. But that kind of touched into something I wrote on that list too. That we talked about. It's like, why does a lot of this craft stuff taste the same? Maybe it's me. I don't know. I did say earlier I'm a bourbon snob, but especially with the white liquor, a lot of it I've been to. I don't know how many. I've probably sampled somewhere between 700 and 800 different alcohols from different. Like this distillery may have 7 or 8 products. That may not be totally fair, because now we're talking about some of these judges at like a judging like San Francisco Spirits competition. You got 15, 20 people. They're going through 2,000 different alcohols over 3 days. Now they're not swallowing on. They're not drinking all that. They're spitting a lot of it out, but that's hard on the body. I mean, and it's not fair to everybody. So, I guess circle back to awards. There's a lot of guys that say it's pay to play. If you I don't. I mean, they're important. They matter to the people that they matter to. The best way to gauge whether you got a good product or not is, are you selling everything you're making? Do you get repeat customers? Are they referring people to you? Are they happy? Are they smiling faces? And I think most people you can tell if they're sincere or not. It's like, wow, this is really good. It's like seeing that ugly baby, they're all cute, right, in their own way.
That's right.
So it is hard sometimes. You taste something like, damn, it tastes like shit. But there's some people that they appreciate that. I will say this. I have a couple bottles of product floating around to some people that I trust them, and they're people I know well enough, and that's why I did. I gave them a bottle, and I had one guy calling back. He's like, dude, this this ain't right. And I'm like, I was just wondering if you're going to be straight with me because I gave you something that I put a couple drops of vinegar in it on purpose to see if they would tell me the truth. Because up until that time, I hadn't had anybody ever tell me anything bad about it. Maybe they were just being nice to my face. So I'm like, I need to find out because, I mean, you got to know where you're at, right? So, but there were people I knew and I trusted. I gave them a Skunk's bottle, and a couple of them like, something's not right here, Steve. You need to clean, so you check something. I'm like, no, I literally put a couple drops of apple cider vinegar, clear white vinegar in there. See if you tell me or not.
That's great. Yeah.
I mean, you can lie to people, just don't lie to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Right.
Well, I think we've kept everybody on here long enough.
No.
we appreciate everybody that's hung out, and
right on.
I really enjoyed listening to you talk, Steve. It was a pleasure. Great information on trying to get your own distillery started here in Ohio. I'm sure it's different in other states. So,
right.
I'm sure Sean's got some other states on. We can hear people talking about coming up. So. But like I said, man, it was an honor to have you on. I appreciate having you on here.
Appreciate being here. Appreciate being asked.
Can't wait to get up there and check out your place. So if I can make it happen Saturday, I'll shoot you a message.
Yeah, I am. Well, I'm not. I'll tell you, I'm not going to be here Saturday. My kid's got a cheerleading competition in Dayton. So.
So you're coming to Dayton, and I'm going up north. Nice.
Yeah, I'm heading down there. I don't have anything. I mean, we hang out in the bar or hang out in the garage and drink liquor. I'll do that all day. But
yeah,
I don't even have any product to sell right now. I barely got like half a bottle of my own stuff that the wife holding on to. It's a good problem to have. But
yeah, it is.
Yep.
But,
so you're never mind. Go ahead.
No, you're good.
I'll get a hold of you.
All right. Yeah. So thanks for hanging out, Sean. It was a good time. Steve, appreciate having you on.
Absolutely.
Best of luck to you in the future, and maybe we'll see you. Are you planning on coming down to the Farm to Bottle Festival in August?
I think I have to work that weekend.
Okay.
So my straight job, I work every other weekend, which it kind of sucks. But I work a 2-2-3 schedule. It's non-traditional, so every other weekend's a 3-day weekend. It just seems like all the cool shit happens when I'm working, right? It's the way it's like tonight. Yeah, I'm off this coming weekend, and I got to go to Dayton for cheerleading. So, but I am going to be down there. I don't know when we're getting. I want to try to catch up with Bill. I got a present. Is Bill on? Do you know? Can you tell? Bill? Yeah, maybe not. He's probably past his bedtime.
Probably not.
Probably not. So
I got a present for him. I got to catch up with him this week.
I was there at Dayton Barrel Works last week. It's a nice place.
Oh yeah.
But anyways, everybody have a great night, and we'll see you next week, same time, same place. So
yes, sir.
Everybody take care.
Thank you.
Everybody shine on.
Have a good night.
Night. Thank you.